Ductal deceptions. Kind of sounds like a spy thriller, right? Well, in a way it is. We're diving into a world where what a surgeon sees isn't always what's really there. A place where their eyes can be tricked and a mistake can have, well, devastating consequences. I mean, check this out. The source material for this explainer opens with this line, and it's just so simple, but wow, it's chilling. Cystic ducts are full of tricks. And it sets the stage perfectly because you have to remember, in an operating room, these tricks aren't just some interesting little puzzle, they're potential disasters just waiting to happen. So that's why we're going with this idea of ductal landmines. And it's a perfect metaphor, isn't it? Just like a real landmine, these things are hidden, they're surprisingly common, and if you don't spot one, if you don't navigate around it with extreme care, the damage can be absolutely catastrophic. All right, so first up, let's really get into the nitty-gritty of these deceptions. You know, getting your gallbladder removed is one of the most common, most routine surgeries in the world. But here's the crazy part. Hidden inside this everyday procedure is this landscape of anatomical tricks. And that paradox is exactly why this is so important to talk about. So let's get to it. Let's meet the main culprits here. Think of this as our police lineup of the 4 primary suspects. These 4 anatomical variations, each one with its own special way of tricking you. Okay, here's our lineup. You've got the low-lying imposter, the parallel twin, the hidden spiral, and finally, the rare leaker. Seriously, you can just picture them as the villains in some high-stakes medical drama, right? And each one brings a totally unique threat to the table that a surgeon has to figure out how to outsmart. All right, first up, deception number 1, the low-lying imposter. This one might be the sneakiest of the bunch, a real master of disguise. It's basically the anatomical version of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay, so here's how it creates this incredibly dangerous illusion. As a surgeon, you're expecting to see a nice, clearly separate cystic duct that you need to remove. Simple enough. But with this imposter, the duct is super short and it sits really low, right where the main bile duct, the CBD, is supposed to be. So you think you're looking at the right thing, you're on the right track, but you're actually about to cut the one structure you absolutely, positively cannot damage. Okay, on to deception number 2, the parallel twin. Our source calls this one a major red flag, and its trick is different. It doesn't hide by looking like something else, it pretty much hides in plain sight. So here's the deal. The problem is all about fusion. Instead of branching off clearly, the cystic duct just runs alongside the main duct for a long way. They're literally parallel. And they often get stuck together by surrounding tissue, so they look like one single big structure. It's just a complete invitation for a surgeon to make a mistake and clip the wrong thing. All right, our third trickster is the hidden spiral. And this one's whole game is to disorient the surgeon, to create total chaos in a really tight, really critical space. So the key thing to understand here is the angle. Surgeons are trained to look for a duct that connects from the side. That's the normal way. But the hidden spiral, well, it spirals. It twists around and plugs in from the back, or even from the middle. And when you're working in that tiny, confined surgical space, that completely unexpected entry point just scrambles your whole mental map of what's going on in there. And that brings us to our 4th and final deception, the rare leaker. Now this one is, well, it's rare, but it might just be the most devastating of them all. And its danger comes from the fact that it's so hard to spot. This is the one. This is the mistake that causes a permanent, life-altering problem. What happens is, there's a rare extra little duct that drains an entire section of the liver, but instead of connecting where it should, it drains right into the cystic duct, the very thing being removed. So if you cut that cystic duct without realizing this little guy is attached, that whole section of the liver will just leak bile. And not for a little while, forever. There's no fixing it. So, we've met the villains, right? The imposter, the twin, the spiral, the leaker. It is a total minefield. Which leads to the big question. How on earth does a surgeon get through it all safely? I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? If the anatomy can be this tricky, this variable, is surgery just a roll of the dice? Well, the answer is a hard no. Absolutely not. Because there's a golden rule, a protocol you cannot break, designed specifically to beat these deceptions. And this is it. It's called the Critical View of Safety, or CVS for short. And you've got to understand, this isn't just, a good idea or a helpful tip. It's a discipline. It is a mandatory enforced pause, a checklist you have to complete to prove with absolute certainty what you're looking at before you make a single cut. And achieving this view is basically a three-step process. Step 1 is to clear. You have to dissect away all the fatty, fibrous tissue in that critical little triangle at the base of the gallbladder. Surgeons call it Calott's triangle. You clear it all out until you have a perfect window. Step 2 is to isolate. You have to clearly expose the two specific things you plan to cut, the cystic duct and the cystic artery. And finally, step 3, you confirm. You double and triple check that those two structures, and only those two, are going into the gallbladder. Not 1, not 3, just 2. Which brings us to the absolute core moral of this whole thing, a line straight from our source. It's the surgeon's mantra, and it's non-negotiable. Never divide until CVS is met. It's that simple. It's that absolute. You never, ever cut or clip anything until that 3-step confirmation is done. Period. So let's just zoom out for a second and wrap this up, because there's a really profound lesson behind all of this. See, the critical view of safety, it's not just a surgical technique. It's really a philosophy. It's about making a conscious choice to verify things, instead of just assuming you're right every single time. It's about knowing that traps exist, respecting how dangerous they are, and then having the discipline to follow the rules that will disarm them. And that really leaves us with one final thought, right? Because this idea of a non-negotiable safety check, it's everywhere. You see it in aviation with pre-flight checklists, in engineering, you name it. So it makes you wonder, what are the ductile landmines in your own world? And what's your unbreakable rule, your own critical view of safety that keeps you from making a disastrous mistake?